All right, now I'll share my screen. And if you'd like to take a screenshot even, no, I don't have it here. Never mind. Sorry, I'll get that in the chat for you guys in a second. Um, so coming back into the presentation that we started this week with, Richard Miller's I-Rest Yoga Nidra is a very specialized Yoga Nidra, and he really does credit it as being able to help people to really awaken into self-realization. And so his technique is a little bit different than Swami Satchidananda's, but basically they all share these similarities. The big difference between Richard Miller's and Swami Satchidananda's and Nushala's is the Asmita Maya Kosha that Richard Miller does add to the whole protocol. So Asmiti Maya is, Asmiti is the ego, and it is part of the 5 kleshas. So there's avidya, or ignorance, Asmiti, ragas and devesha, and then abhidivesha. And so this idea that the ego is separate and individual is what we are working to recognize first, and then dissolve secondly. So here's just a little bit of information on one of Richard's and my teacher. So this is Ramana, and he's one of the, no longer in the body, but one of the non-dual teachers that has been most influential in our practices. So welcoming, one of the hallmarks of I-Rest Yoga Nidra is this welcoming. Every thought, every feeling, every emotion, sensation, everything is a messenger. It's trying to communicate with you. I-Rest puts a lot of focus on welcoming the messenger. Healing occurs through wholeness, and wholeness is the integration of all of the parts of our body, our experience, our mind, our emotions that we might not want to be a part of. One of our regular students came in a couple of days ago and was talking to me about anger. They were talking specifically about anger and how they had never identified with the emotion of anger, and that they felt that just yogis weren't supposed to be angry. But I think that's like the foundation of spiritual gaslighting, right? That like we're supposed to be always happy or always joyous or always in a good mood. And that's just not true. If we think that that's what we're supposed to be, and then we're not that thing, then we create dissonance. We create an incongruency in the thought and the belief, right? So creating space to welcome each messenger and offer them the opportunity to be integrated into the wholeness of the experience. This is definitely one of the points of Yoga Nidra. And Richard makes it even easier by giving people the option to acknowledge any thoughts, feelings, memories, or sensations that might be present, and then to acknowledge their opposites, in effect creating a relationship with the practice of Pratipaksha Bhavana that helps us to neutralize our polarity around certain experiences and thoughts and feelings. Another thing that Richard talks about, and it's in the handout that I just uploaded, is this idea of always remembering. So we're always forgetting and we're always remembering. There is, on the second page, it says it's page 4, but on the second page of the PDF that I just shared with you guys, the top of the second page says that there's a 38-step map, right? And so this is the meditation map. And one of the things that I've done is I've actually taken the meditation map and I have condensed it so that it's a little bit easier to deal with and to work with. Richard's meditation map is very, very helpful, but essentially what happens is if we are not if we're not moving sort of progressively through the states of awareness, etc., then we sometimes lose it. We fall back down, right? So for example, I am separate, I am unique, I am individual. Here, I'll pull it up for you. This is how I, nope, wrong thing. This is how I created a, like I said, a little bit of a simplified meditation map. So we start from the bottom, even though it's not actually linear. It's similar to healing, right? Healing's not linear, and neither is our practice. But we start here at the bottom in this seeking place. So I'm seeking, this is the desire to know truth, and it aligns with Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, self versus self as separate. So this directly correlates to the practice of meditation. Before we come into that practice of meditation, we're in a state of seeking. And so if we know that about ourselves, and we know that about our students, we can sort of gauge where they are depending on where they are in this map. The next stage is awakening non-attachment to people. This is Vivek. It's the difference between permanence and impermanence. The ancient scripture that sort of we anchor ourselves to when we're talking about this awakening is the Upanishads. So small self versus big self versus truth. What is real, what is not real. All that is separate is unreal. All that is whole is real. The next step is awakening non-attachment to sensory input. Now, this doesn't mean that I am no longer going to like chocolate cake, or I'm no longer going to like, wine, or whatever it is that I really like, sensory input. You might say it might be affection or intimate touch or something like that. We are householders, and householders don't really live by that same doctrine as an aspirant would live. Householders are in and of the world. So it's appropriate for us to engage in intimacy with our partners, intimacy in the family with our children, with our, extended family. This is all normal and appropriate. What happens though is we're not attached to it. I have it, I don't have it. I have the tea, I don't have the tea. I have the Diet Coke, I don't have the Diet Coke. I have the hugs and kisses, I don't have the hugs and kisses. It doesn't make me less than or separate from the interdependent truth that is my experience of wholeness. The next stage in the game is this liberation or non-attachment to birth and death, seeking truth. So I am not attached to this experience of Michelle. I understand that this experience of Michelle is impermanent. I can't take it with me. One day I will be here, one day I will not be here, and that's okay. And so that again is understanding that the perceived permanence of our experience is actually not real, that the impermanence is actually comforting in that things are always changing in my awareness, but I am not that which is changing. I am the awareness in which all things arise, all change arise in my awareness. The next step is non-doing. So this unveiling the mind or unraveling the mind. This is definitely a concept we see in the Bhagavad Gita, the do or don't do, right? Arjuna is talking to Krishna on the battlefield, and he says, I don't want to fight. These are my teachers, my friends, my countrymen, my family. I don't want to fight them. And Krishna says, fight them, don't fight them. It doesn't matter. You're not doing anything anyway. And so that's really this next stage of unraveling the mind. Being awareness, consciousness connected to pure awareness. Again, Bhagavad Gita. I am all of these things. I am every face, right? So when we see God in every face and every being, then that is self-realization. Moving up into awareness, this is the complete detachment and interdependence with all beings. So this comes from the Brahman Sutras. the Brahma Sutras. So oneness, being, I no longer need the I to be a pointer. I can identify with being. Now, Richard Miller says when you go, if you study with Richard, he'll talk about this particular stage of when you get there, now you have to practice not using I, me, my, they, or we, right? Omitting all pronouns from your vocabulary can be quite challenging, but it helps us to stay in the memory of who we are, that self-realization. The next stage is truth, absolute truth. The only thing that's true, the only thing that's absolutely true, definitively 100% is we are beings in an experience. That is really the only thing that's true. Everything else is a perception of reality and keeps us in that bondage of life and death, and birth and death. And then the final stage is bliss. And this sort of 4-quadrant here, if you notice, it looks similar to the journal that I give you guys in the 200-hour, but it's a little bit different, right? So we have this goal line, right? So ground to goal, and then instrument to agent. So this helps us to understand and sort of be with, we are an instrument of the divinity that is living and breathing us. We're not doing anything, right? I don't take ownership of my instrument, but rather I am detached and I let divine energy flow through me. Then I become grounded yet on the goal line. So I move forward, upward, inward in this evolution and involution, while I am both in the experience of instrument, yet being directed by agent, which is divine source. So this is how I've simplified it. I've lost my original meditation map that I received from these trainings with Richard. But Richard's is a little bit more complicated. I say a little bit, I should probably say a lot. Richard is a lot, his is a lot more complicated in that. Oh wait, why are we doing this and not this? What's going on here? Hold on, there we go. Like, why is it doing that? So this is the document that I shared with you guys, and if you move through, hold on, this is not everything. All righty, well, stinkers. Hold on one second, guys. So if we were looking at the document that I intended to be up on the screen, it would have the 38-step map. So it basically goes through the secular teachings that underlie all spiritual traditions. So looking at free dogma, designed to support everything, irrespective. Incorporates the teachings of Samkhya, Patanjali, Advaita Vedanta, Kashmir non-dualism, Judeo-Christian perspectives, Taoism, Islam, Sufism, Buddhism, and other traditions. So Richard really does like lay it all out on the table and say, from all of the different secular religions, what does it look like to awaken? And I think that's really important, because Richard doesn't say there's one right way. Richard doesn't say, okay, well, there's only one religion, or there's only one belief system, or there's only one way to do it. He says all of these things have the same universal concepts and give you the same universal tools that you would need to move into the different stages. He says there are 25 foundational stages comprised of 9 basic practices, which are derived from the teachings of Samkhya and Patanjali. There is an intermediate stage and practice based on non-dual teachings of Vedanta, and then 12 advanced stages practice based on the teaching of Kashmir, unqualified non-duality. Unqualified non-duality. And here's the book. if you're interested, this is what he's talking about. This is a book called Kashmir Shaivism. Richard says he's the one who keeps this book in print. And it's actually, it's very fascinating. It's very heady. It's very heady. It takes a little bit of digesting. But it's definitely a way to wrap your brain around non-duality if you're having a problem with that. All righty. Any questions?
Yeah, where is the link? I'll take this up. Hi, where's the link for the meditation with chakras? Where's that?
The link for the meditations with chakras. Are you talking about the meditation map I was just showing you?
Yes, thank
I
you.
have a link to that. I will in a second.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So IREST also uses that same formula that we found in Swami Satchidananda's Yoga Nidra, his Tantric Yoga Nidra, creating an intention. In addition to setting an intention, IREST also helps practitioners to connect to their inner resource. This is just another difference between IREST and other forms of Yoga Nidra. We don't see that so much in Nashula's, and we don't see it in Swami Satchidananda's either. IREST uses specific techniques of tantric pratyahara to rotate the consciousness. Now remember that Yoga Nidra, what is Yoga Nidra? Is it meditation or is it pratyahara?
Pratyahara?
Yes, it's pratyahara. So the state of awareness that comes out of this practice of pratyahara is the state of awareness that we call meditation, and there are varying different degrees of it. But Richard uses the different rotations of consciousness to help us to get into the practice, and he uses this as body sensing and breath sensing. He also, if you study with him one-on-one, he'll bring each chakra into it. This morning when we were doing the Kapalabhati, and we had our mudra fingers, so we had index finger, thumb, and then the other fingers are straight out and they're on the knees, right? And we're doing Kapalabhati. Where do you feel that? Well, you feel it in your pelvis. What chakra do you think we're working with at that point? Yeah, we're working with the root chakra, right? And then the next one, so we went from here, then we went to here, right? Mid-thigh. So then where are we working? Now we've moved up. The sensation is around the navel. So what are we doing then? What chakra are we working with then? So we're working with the sacral chakra at that point. And then now I take and I go from here, then I take my thumbs and I put them inside, and now I'm at my like hip creases, right? So what chakra am I working with there? I'm working with the solar plexus. Then I bring my hands from here and then I turn them here. And this is right where the solar plexus would be, right? Then I feel the whole of the whole container, right? From collarbones to pubic bone, all in sensation, right? And this is based on the Kapalabhati and the mudra that I'm using. So when you study with Richard and you use these techniques, he will say things like, you know, as you are, it's very challenging, I think, to teach it, but basically he'll have everybody in Kapalabhati and you're in your first little mudra and he's like, Kapalabhati. And then he's like, he says things like, imagine that you are palpating your root chakra as if it was a ball, right? As if it was a ball in the pelvis. as you are practicing Kapalabhati, right? And then we move from here to here, and oh, now we're palpating the sacral chakra as we move into this practice, right? Then we go from here to here, and then now we're palpating the solar plexus, right? So it's really fascinating how you can bring in the subtle bodies. You know, if you'll notice that when we started to do these guys, so this one, this, and these mudras are all about the energy in the actual spine. So the sensation went from the gross abdomen, right? So my pelvis, my abdomen, my chest, right? Now it moves to the subtle body. So it moves to the spine and the chakras. Which is fascinating. And we all felt that as this felt sensation in the body. So iris can be broken down into chunks where you work with one skill at a time, or it can be practiced all together. The complete cycle is here, the 10 steps of iris. And so you can pick and choose them. You can pick them out. Now I will say, heartfelt mission, intention, and inner resource are not necessarily Richard Miller's like brainchild. I've seen them in many other different forms of pratyahara. I think Richard took a combination of many tools that we've been working with in the contemplative arts for, you know, centuries, and he brought them all together to create his practice of iris yoga nidra. But understand that if you pull out and get your clients, for example, to work on their inner resource, that is fine. That's not necessarily specific to iris. That's just something that he has taken from, you know, many other different practices and incorporated it into his experience. Breath sensing and body sensing. So if we looked at this particular practice as it compares to Swami Satchidananda's Yoga Nidra, we'll notice that these are flipped, right? In Swami Satchidananda's Yoga Nidra, we have, actually, no, they're not flipped. We have body sensing first, and then we have breath sensing. So, but body sensing is the rotation of consciousness for Swami Satchidananda. Whereas with Richard, he does it a couple different ways. He does it with dynamic movement, where you're moving the whole body, almost like an asana practice. He does it with psychically moving through the different body parts. He does it with autogenics, heavy, heavy, light, light. He does it with progressive muscle relaxation. So he uses multiple different tools to achieve body sensing, but he doesn't use them all at once. They're used individually. Breath sensing is also done with Richard Miller's iris yoga nidra. Typically, it's not as long as Swami Satchidananda's. In my experience with iris, it typically is not something that we spend as long as much attention to, I guess. Swami Satchidananda's, I was taping it, or not taping it, but I was timing it the other day when we were doing multiple practices. And that particular style of yoga nidra spends about 10 to 15 minutes on breath sensing, whereas Richard Miller probably spends, you know, maybe 5 minutes on breath sensing. Opposite of emotion, opposite of thought. Those are examples of Pratipaksha Bhavana, joy and awareness and wholeness. So these are the three that, you know, are different than what we see in Swami Satchidananda. And Swami Satchidananda's, he gives us the Pratipaksha Bhavana in terms of visualization. So rather than feeling an emotion as a felt sense in the body, or thinking a thought as a felt sense of the body, we visualize things. So there's a bit of a difference there. So are there any questions about iris yoga nidra specifically, or how it relates to Swami Satchidananda's or Nashala's yoga nidra practices? Nope, nothing. So what are you guys excited? Okay, wait. Nicole says, which do you personally prefer? I prefer Nushalas. Nushala is what I think is the most palatable. So with Nushala's format, imagery fits in when she says guide the gentle breath to brush the toes, the tops of the feet, the bottom of the feet. So it's like you're visualizing the breath, the brushing, any tension. In the bigger script that you get when you get certified through Nushala, it talks about brushing away any thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, or scars. So there's some suggestive visualization there. And then at the end of the breath sensing, body sensing awareness, Nushala will say, you know, let go of, like you're in the hands, and she'll say, send the gentle breath to brush the palms, the fingertips, the wrists, the back of the hands. Let go of anything you're carrying that no longer serves. So Nushala's is a little bit less like visualizing a particular thing, and it's more about, I think, the energetic awareness of how we're holding energy in the body, if that makes sense. I still would consider it a visualization, because when I'm in that practice, I have to think about brushing away the tension, right, in the various parts of the body. Yes, yes, it's built into it. And that's not to say that you couldn't create something, that in your script that you use for tomorrow, that you couldn't create a practice that has all of these things incorporated. Any other questions? Paula?
Just want to get some clarification then. So when it comes to writing our script for this, we can incorporate the sensation along with the visualization, along with the breath. Can we like tie it all in, or do we have to keep them separated?
I think you can tie them all in. I think Swami Satchidananda's is very separate. I think Richard's is not so separate. So I think you can tie them together as you see fit. We're going to do a full IRS Yoga Nidra practice in a few minutes, just to sort of close out today. And so that'll give you another example of how you can do it. But I really want you guys to feel like you have the ability to be creative. Yes, I think guided imagery would be appropriate. Like in Swami Satchidananda's Yoga Nidra, we go, you know, there's one visualization where we go into a forest or a jungle, right? And find a golden egg. There's another visualization where we walk up a mountain and we're with a guide. And then at some point we say, hey guide, we don't need you anymore. And we keep on walking. That's an interesting one. That's in Swami Satchidananda's book as well. So yeah, I think you can totally do that. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? What's coming up for you guys? All righty, well, if nothing else is coming up, we'll go ahead and do this next practice of iRest. And again, I think sitting up is a great way to do iRest. So if you can tolerate sitting up, that would be awesome. All right, okay. I'm just taking a moment to adjust your body, adjusting your clothes, your physical body on the surface that is supporting you. Release any unnecessary tension in the jaw, the shoulders, the arms, the torso and legs. Your entire body and mind settling into feeling at rest and at ease. During iRest, welcome every experience you have as a messenger that's here to help you experience health, healing, and well-being at all levels of body, mind, and spirit. Welcome every messenger as it arrives with curiosity and openness. Allow your senses to be open to your environment and the sounds around you. Welcome the feeling of air touching your skin, the sensations where your body touches the surface that's supporting it, and the feeling of letting go and being at ease throughout your entire body and mind. Welcome your heartfelt mission, the feeling of life, living you with purpose, meaning, and value. As you silently affirm to yourself, I am a unique and valued expression of life, life living me with purpose and meaning. Experience this as true with your entire body and mind. Bring to mind your intention for today's practice, your intention that supports you to live your heartfelt mission. Perhaps to remain awake and attentive, or to explore a particular sensation, emotion, or belief. Feel and affirm your intention with your entire body and mind as true in this moment. Bring attention to your inner resource, the place where your body experiences a felt sense of well-being and of being secure and at ease. If it's helpful, imagine a place, a person, or experience that supports you to feel secure and at ease. Using all of your senses to enhance your experience, imagine sounds, sights, sensations, smells, and taste that invite ease and well-being into your entire body and mind. Affirm that you can return to your inner resource at any time, day or night, or during your practice of iRest. Whenever you feel the need to take a momentary time out to rest, to restore, and to feel totally secure and at ease. Rotate your attention through your body while experiencing and welcoming sensations. You may feel something or little at all. Whatever you experience is perfect just as it is. Sense your jaw, mouth, teeth, lips, and gums, tongue, the entire inside of the mouth, the entire jaw and mouth as sensation. Give up thinking and simply welcome sensation in the jaw and mouth. Sense your left ear, your right ear, welcoming both ears as radiant sensation. Sense your left nostril, your right nostril, the flow of air and sensation inside both nostrils. Feel the sensation of the left eye, eyebrow, temple, cheekbone, the entire left eye, right eye, eyebrow, temple, cheekbone, the entire right eye. Welcome both eyes at the same time as radiant sensation. Without thinking, just feeling sensation of the forehead, scalp, back of the head, neck, the entire face, head, and neck as sensation. Sense your left shoulder, left upper arm, forearm, wrist, palm and fingers. The sensation of the entire left arm and hand, right shoulder, right upper arm, forehead, wrist, palm and fingers. The sensation of the entire right arm and hand, welcoming both arms and hands at the same time as radiant sensation. Sense the upper chest, mid-chest, abdomen, the sensation of the upper back, mid-back, lower back, the entire back of the torso, the entire front of the torso, the entire torso, front and back, inside and outside, as shimmering sensation. Bring attention into the pelvis, the left hip, the left upper leg, knee, lower leg, ankle and foot. The sensation of the entire left foot, leg, and hip. Awake, attentive, yet relaxed and at ease. Sensing the right hip, right upper leg, knee, lower leg, ankle, and foot. The sensation of the entire right foot and leg and hip. Welcome both hips, legs, and feet all together as radiant sensation. Welcome the entire front of the body, a field of sensation. Back of the body, left side of the body, right side of the body, inside the body, outside of the body. The entire body as shimmering sensation. Note how you're the observer watching all of these sensations coming and going, everything just as it is. Feel yourself being non-judging awareness in which all of these sensations are coming and going. Silently affirm to yourself, I am practicing I rest. My body is deeply at rest. I am aware, at ease, attentive, and awake. Sense the body breathing itself and the natural flow of sensation as breath enters and leaves the nostrils. The gentle rise and fall of the abdomen and chest. Now begin counting from 1 to 11 while sensing your belly expanding and releasing with each breath. Inhale, belly expanding 1. Exhale, belly releasing 1. Inhale, belly expanding 2. Exhale, belly releasing 2. And so on. With each count, tension releasing throughout your entire body. Continue counting at your own pace. During each exhalation, feel a deep release of tension throughout your body. With each inhalation, simply remain with the feeling of deep release. Sensing and releasing tension, welcoming deep relaxation throughout your entire body. Awake and attentive. When you come to 11, begin again at 1. Long, smooth exhalations, tension releasing throughout the entire body, jaw, ears, eyes, forehead, scalp, shoulders, abdomen, legs. Tension releasing throughout the whole body. Awake, attentive, body breathing itself. Allow the counting to fall away. Remain attentive to the flow of the sensation throughout the nose and body. Sensing the body as a field of shimmering sensation. Sense how you are the observer of all that's now present in your awareness. Awake and aware of all that's present. Sensations, thoughts, images. Affirm to yourself, I am awake, I am aware, I am practicing I rest and resting at ease. Welcome feelings that are present. Perhaps the feeling of warmth, heaviness, or the feeling of being at ease. Without changing anything, simply welcoming feelings that are present just as they are. Now locate the opposite feelings. If you're sensing warmth, find coolness. If heaviness, sense lightness. If ease, sense tension. Without going into thinking, just sensing. Then coming back to the original feeling. And then shifting to its opposite again. Move that back and forth between opposites at your own pace. When it feels right, welcome both opposites at the same time. Experience how this impacts your body and mind. Not with thinking, just sensing, just experiencing. Feel yourself as the observer who's observing all these things that are coming and going in your awareness. Feel yourself being non-judging awareness in which all of these movements are coming and going. Now welcome an emotion that's present in your body, or recall an emotion that you're working with in your life. If no emotion is present, be with what's most calling your attention right now, whether it's an emotion or another sensation. And remember, you can always return to the safe haven of your inner resource whenever you feel the need to take a momentary time out to heal, feel secure and at ease. And if an emotion is present, where and how do you feel it in your body? Are there thoughts or images that accompany this emotion? Welcome your experience just as it is without judging or trying to change it. Now locate an opposite emotion and where and how you experience this opposite in your body. If it's helpful, recall a memory that invites this opposite of emotion more fully into your body. When it feels right, move back and forth between these opposite experiences. First one, and then its opposite. In your own time, sense how each emotion affects your body and mind. Then sense both emotions at the same time, experiencing how this affects your entire body and mind. Sense how you are the observer of all that's now present in your awareness. Awake and aware of all that's present, sensations, thoughts, images. Affirm to yourself, I am aware and awake, practicing I rest and resting at ease. Notice and welcome the various thoughts that are present. Thoughts as objects that are coming and going. Observing and noting them as they appear and disappear without getting involved. If it feels right, welcome a particular group or thought, a belief or a self-judgment that you take to be true about yourself and fall into believing at times. And if no belief is present, this too is your experience. Welcome whatever is most present in this moment. And if a belief is present, where and how do you feel it in your body when you take it to be true? Welcome memories, emotions, and sensations that naturally arise without judging or trying to change your experience. And if this belief had an opposite, what might its opposite be? Bring to mind the opposite of your belief or self-judgment. Where or how do you feel it in your body when you take this opposite belief to be true? There's no right or wrong answer. Your experience is perfect just as it is. Stay with your experience just as it is. Now return to the original belief or judgment, welcoming your experience with curiosity and openness. At your own pace, go back and forth several times between these opposites, experiencing first one and then the other with your entire body and mind. When it feels right, welcome both beliefs at the same time, experiencing how this impacts your body and mind. Be aware of all that's now in your awareness, sensing how you are the witness of all that's arising, awake and aware of sensation, emotions, thoughts. Affirm to yourself, I am aware and awake, practicing I rest and resting at ease. Bring attention to sensations of well-being in your body. Recall a memory of a particular person, animal, place, or circumstance that invites joy and well-being into your body. Experience the feeling of well-being or joy expanding throughout your entire body, every cell in your body welcoming its natural sense of joy and well-being. Perhaps experiencing an inner smile coming from your heart throughout your entire body, your lips gently smiling, joy, well-being, and an inner smile flowing throughout your entire body, face, torso, arms, and legs. Your entire body alive with the feeling of well-being and joy. And be aware of all that's now in awareness, while dissolving into the spacious openness in which all these changing activities are coming and going. And be aware of all that's now in your awareness, sensing how you're the observer of all that's arising, awake and aware of sensations, emotions, thoughts, joys. Affirm to yourself, I am aware and awake, practicing I rest and resting at ease. Set aside the thinking mind and memory and settle into simply being, nothing to do, nowhere to be, just the delightful feeling of being. Notice how you're aware of being an observer of this feeling of being. Everything that you're experiencing, allow yourself to dissolve into being, observing, being awareness, all sense of separation dissolving, being awareness in which everything is arising. Sense how all your thoughts, emotions, sensations, and sounds are simply movements in awareness. Feel yourself as the spacious openness of awareness. How as awareness you're everywhere and nowhere specific, yet undeniably present. As awareness in front, behind, left, right, inside, outside, formless, yet undeniably present. Rest here, being awareness, feeling your non-separate wholeness with all of life, awake, aware, at ease. Everything just as it is, sensing your non-separate wholeness, connected to yourself, the world around you, and all of life. Reside here, being until you're naturally called to end the practice of I-rest. As you're ready to return to your eyes wide open state, take a few moments and welcome the feeling of gratitude for taking this time to experience your wholeness, health, and healing, and for taking time for practicing I-rest. Know that as you return to your daily life and activities, you are the underlying non-separate wholeness of life, seemingly separate, but in fact never separate at all, always whole and not separate from all of life. As you're ready, open and close your eyes several times while feeling your wholeness and welcoming your inner resource of being, well-being, peace, contentment, and joy. Welcome and affirm again your heartfelt mission with your entire body and mind. The sense of life living you with meaning, purpose, and value. Affirm your intentions that support you living your heartfelt mission. Affirm the truth that in every moment you always have within you the perfect response to each situation and circumstance. Feel again your body. Sense open to the environment, to sounds around you. Imagine going about your day, all the while awake and aware of your undivided wholeness, the wholeness in which all of life is unfolding. Take your time now, transitioning back into your everyday waking life at your own pace. Your body fully awakened to its natural state of eyes open, awaking to its wakeful presence, attentive and awake, aware of your surroundings, coming fully back when you're ready, grateful for taking this time for yourself, for the practice of I-rest, for health and healing, and experiencing your wholeness with all of life. Awesome. So slowly making our way back. How was that practice? Alrighty, guys. How was it? Amy, yeah.
Hi, thank you. It was very emotional. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I had a harder time than the first time you walked us through like relaxing my body, which was interesting. But then when you had added the emotional part, when we did our breakout rooms, one of my questions was like, how do you go from the I don't remember what it was called, the dualistic, the like feeling hot and then feeling cold, and how do you lead through it? So like part of me was like tracking with what you said and what was going on. But then when I let myself feel, I felt grief. And then I felt joy. I felt the grief. My dog died a couple months ago, and it was just like all encompassing. And then I felt the joy of reading with my son at night. And it was like going between both of them was so beautiful and lovely, and filled me with this like warmth and exhaustion. And then going through the other parts, it just was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for sharing, Amy. Yeah, I think holding for, so that's the big difference, I think, between Richards and the other two, is that he doesn't even like mess around. He's like, all right, let's think about an emotion. What emotion's coming up for you? So it can be a little bit, I mean, not activating necessarily, not in the same way that Swami Satchidananda's is activating, but
Yeah.
activating in a different
I
way.
hated his.
Yeah, activating in a different way, right?
Yeah, like it brought it up without making it feel like needles or like judgment. It just was feeling, I don't know. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Amy. Thank you very much. Anybody else have an experience with this one or any thoughts around this one? That was a pretty comprehensive, full IREST. So which one do you like best? Okay, so Vanessa says, struggled with this one, preferred Swami Satchidananda's because it's more directive. Okay, I can see that. And everybody's going to have a different preference. So, just understanding that and knowing that what works for some clients won't work for every client. So, there's always that to consider. So, Amy Young, which one did you like the most?
The only one I could fully connect with was the one this morning, because the house is chaotic today. But I've listened to them all, and I'm just really loving listening to the different tenor of them. And for me, with Yoga Nidra, and I just always get to the same place. I don't have different, whenever I do them, I just go to that. Someone called it yesterday the nice place. And I just go to the nice place, and I like being there. So, but what I really love is listening to the different scripts and hearing people's responses to them, and just really connecting with the truth that you just said, that we're all gonna have different experiences with all of them. And it's just always good to remember that when working with people, it's not one size fits all. It's just play around with it. So
Absolutely.
with it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Amy. Paula says, got settled into it, and my husband came downstairs and jolted me out of it. I'm so sorry, Paula. Still prefer Swamis. Okay. Would you pair this with restorative or yen in the beginning? Yes, you could. Today's practice was a little bit more vigorous, but you could pair it with any practice, would be totally fine. Alrighty, so does everybody understand what is for homework tonight? So I know some of you guys aren't going to be with us tomorrow, and although we will miss you, that's totally okay. You can always watch the replay. Ideally, everybody who's been able to come up until today will show up tomorrow and have a script to share. Depending on how many people show up, if it's a smaller group like we normally have on a weekday, you know, we might cycle through as one big group and not do individual breakout sessions. Again, if breakout sessions are not your jam, if they cause you anxiety or anything like that, you can always stay and hang back with me, and you know, we can work together. Or you know, not everybody really enjoys the breakout sessions, so don't ever hesitate to just stay back with me. But please do come tomorrow prepared to lead your yoga nidra. Ideally, everybody will be able to do that. We'll have a chance to get some feedback. Okay, any questions about that? Yes, Amy.
Oh, sorry, I don't have a question about that specifically, but I have a question about nidras in general. When you do or lead a yoga nidra, this morning, we went through this flow that was really beautiful, and then did the yoga nidra, and then this afternoon, just the nidra. Is it not that there's a should, but often is it paired, or is it also standalone? What is, if I was going to be leading through this, what would be like, even if we just like do cat cow or something kind of mild, like how does one usually kind of enter into it with a physical and that, yeah.
Yeah, so Nashala says that that if we go back to the sutras tell us asana, pranayama, pratyahara, meditation. So like that we should follow the sutras. Not everybody does that. Swami Satyananda doesn't really talk about it like in the same way. He says that it can be beneficial to incorporate movement. Richard Miller incorporates movement, but it's not asana, and it's not, like I said, Richard, if he's incorporating movement, this is what he has to do. He has everybody stand up and he says, okay, everybody close your eyes and just allow your right arm to move where your right arm wants to move. So we're all in there. It's like 60 people in there. We're all like, ah. And he's like, and now if your left arm were to move, where would your left arm be going? And anything that it does is perfect just as it is. So that's like how he does it. He doesn't do asana. At least in the trainings I've gone to, he hasn't done physical asana like that. And I was actually expecting him to, because he is such a tantric yoga nidra, or tantric yogi rather, you know, so oftentimes tantra yoga will have like kriya, and then you'll do some hatha yoga, and then you'll do pranayama, and then you'll do pratyahara. So it's very sort of, you know, methodical. But his is a little bit, that's why I say it's a little bit more new age. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? Catherine, that cat was just outside, right? Okay, I was like, the last time I saw it at the window, and I can't quite wrap my brain around how it's in your lap now. But, nice. Any questions about how to use these with individuals, one-on-one or in group settings?
Yeah, hi. Actually, during the breakout session today, we had a really wonderful conversation because neither of us is either experienced with Yoga Nidra or feels great when we're activated. So it was really fun to find like a like-minded person. And it came up of like, is meditation just an non-activating like Yoga Nidra? And if we were wondering whether meditation would be kind of like more like Nishala's Nidra, instead, if that can be more calming, and if in bigger groups, that's what we should stick to, because you mentioned that you tend to know the person's, background and trauma in order to activate them properly. So we were just wondering whether, if we're uncomfortable with activation, we could just stick with nashalas or more like a guided meditation type.
Sure. Well, I think there's a misunderstanding that that meditation is not activating. There is an entire type of meditation called meditation on repulsiveness, and it's a whole practice of it's a Buddhist practice on meditating on things that repulse you or that you have an aversion to. So I think that in America, we've got this idea of meditation as, it's all rainbows and butterflies and you finish and you feel like you're walking on a cloud. But the idea of, so in a state of meditation, even if you're activated, so we've taken you through all these different yoga nidras. Let's say you were activated by one of Swami Satchidananda's. Does that mean you weren't in a meditative state? Not at all. Not at all. You might have been in a meditative state, especially if you weren't really aware of thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, etc. And then all of a sudden you were sort of jolted into an activated experience. Yeah, you were in meditation and something unconscious came up and pricked you. It's pricked the awareness. And in spiritual psychology, well, my teacher used to call it a stacker, but I just call it an activator. And so basically it's there are these things that activate unconscious impressions. And typically when we're in a waking state, waking in terms of we're in this beta cognition, my brain waves are going, I'm going. Then you basically, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Give me 1 second. So when I'm in this activated state, I oftentimes maybe I'll see something. For example, you're scrolling through Facebook and then you find out that somebody died. We've all had that experience, yeah? So far, most of us have.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that they were sick and now I find out that they're dead, right? On social media. Well, I'm in a beta state of awareness, right? My state of consciousness is this beta state. So my unconscious mind will quickly divert. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that person was even sick. And then I go on in my own little world, right? I'm activated and my unconscious mind is pulling me away from that activation. And oftentimes it'll do one of two things. It will either internalize the activation. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know she was sick. Could I be sick? Could I be sick and not know it, right? Or it'll be oh my gosh, I didn't know she was sick. Oh, it was lung cancer. Oh, she was a smoker. That must have been it. And then we go about our day. You see what I'm saying? We sort of vacillate between trying to rationalize the activation. But when you're in a meditative state and you get activated, it's you just get activated and you feel the feeling that comes with that activation, that normally that awareness, that beta cognition would push that feeling away and take you someplace else.
That makes so much sense. Sorry, my husband has hiccups right next to me and he's being annoying. No, but that makes so much sense. I didn't even think that the reason why even little things feel I get not triggered, but activated during meditation is because I'm already in that prone to internalize it, like you said, in the beta state. That makes so much sense. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a question, Michelle. So how do I ask this? I spent a long time practicing meditation after trauma to be grounded and be in the happy place. And so I know my feelings. I have that, you were talking about joy earlier. Joy for me is grief and joy, holding it all, like the greater, that the nice place, whoever said that, it really resonated with me. The nice place allows me to be steady and hold those truths that I experience. And so when I do meditation or I do yoga nidra, I just have peace there. And so, but I'm wondering that a term that's come up in the past few years is spiritual bypassing. Like, so when you're leading me through these things, I don't get ignited or activated, but should I investigate that again just because it's an opportunity to investigate it, or can I just stay where I am? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, in a therapeutic way, should I just be like, I know where grief is in my body. Should I go play with it? You know what I mean?
Great. I think that's great. I think that the way Richard Miller uses this is Richard Miller uses this for the wounded that come in bloody. Okay. Now, a lot of us are coming in with scabs. Does that make sense? And so I don't necessarily think we should pick at our scabs, right? And try to get underneath them, because the protective mechanism of the unconscious mind is to create the scab, right? Right? So, but what do we know? The more we move and the more we do things, those scabs fall off. And then there's that sensitive tissue again. So what I recommend is do what comes natural. You know, you at some point in your life, you were in a lot of pain and suffering and trauma, and then you made changes in your life and you used meditation to work with that pain and suffering and trauma, and came to a realization where contentment and joy is holding for both. And so now you've developed the skill to hold for both. I can hold for shame, and I can hold for pride, or I can hold for grief, but I can also hold for, elation or joy, right? And I think that's fine. I think spiritual bypass is, there's two different things that come up for me when we talk about spiritual bypass. When we talk about spiritual bypass is like, what is it? It's like, I'm angry and I want you to see me, hear me, and connect to me. That's one form of spiritual bypass that people don't realize is spiritual bypass. The next form of spiritual bypass is it's all good. So there's two, do you see what I'm saying? On the spectrum, there's two different styles, basically. So imagine that, and I'm speaking to the first one from experience. I am so angry. You've got to know why I'm angry. I am so angry. This was absolutely unacceptable. You should never do this to another human being, right? That is, well, what's the spiritual bypass there? I'm not responding. I'm reacting. I have my feelings. I am projecting my feelings onto another individual, and I'm reacting there, right? So what is dealing with it on a spiritual level? It's acknowledging my own pain. It's acknowledging my own suffering. It's recognizing that this person, place, thing, experience didn't cause the origin of my suffering, but it activated in me my suffering, right? And then I work through however I need to work through to be at peace with that suffering. And then I look at this person, place, thing, experience, and I do whatever work I need to do to come to compassion to this person, place, experience, whatever, right? That is, when I think about like really doing the work, that's what it is. It's like Pima Cordon, and I'm not really in the Buddhist monk scene, but Pima Cordon is very well known. Most of us know who I'm talking about. And she says, the work isn't just to walk around and be blissfully happy all day, nor is it to walk around and point the finger. It's to be okay with what is arising in you and to have compassion for those who have activated you in that experience, right? It's not the person that represents the activation right? It's the activation in me and then recognizing this other part of it. So I think there's two very, very strong ways to do it. The other way is like people will just walk around and be like, oh, well, it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. Exactly how is it? Exactly what is it? You know? And so those are the two things that come up for me with spiritual bypass. I don't think what you're doing right now is, I don't think being in that happy space is the spiritual bypass. Until you get activated in that space and want to run away from the activation, then that's a spiritual bypass. Just give me my teacher used to say, Shanti used to say, just give me the vanilla ice cream. I'll just eat the vanilla ice cream. I don't need anything else, you know? And that sort of is that spiritual bypass. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel that feeling, so let me get my vanilla ice cream. Or, oh, I don't want to feel that feeling, so it just is what it is, right?
Cool.
Elise?
Thank you guys for sharing. Did you want me to go ahead, Michelle?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I was curious, just right now when you described that running away feeling, I would say I tend to have that not at all in Yoga Nidra. I'm more like the other people who spoke that the polarization actually is comforting. I think it gives me an opportunity to practice my feelings or non-judgment around it. But in life, I tend to be a big runner, and that's the immediate thing I want to do. And lately, I find myself not wanting to run, definitely wanting to run away because I don't want conflict, but finding myself much more frozen, kind of like back when you said there's flight, fight, or the new version of freezing. So I'm wondering if for myself and clients like that, if Yoga Nidra may be a good place to just kind of actually bring ourselves to, and if we find ourselves in that place of wanting to run at that moment, but really not wanting to because I feel stuck because I don't actually want to go. I want to deal with it.
So give me your question one more time.
So with the question is, would it be okay? Would it be safe, starting with myself, in that actual moment, not during Yoga Nidra where things may or may not come up, but actually in the moment where something comes up where one wants to run away, but they really find that pulling towards wanting to heal it too, would that be a good time to just drop down into Yoga Nidra? And if so, which one would you suggest, Aneshala?
So I would say that sometimes it's really hard to just like stop, like, right? Like, so let's say we're out with friends and somebody says something that's activating and it makes you want to just like run away, or it makes you feel insignificant or something like that. It's hard to drop down into Yoga Nidra right there, right? So what I recommend to people is notice when you get activated, notice the physical sensations in your body when you get activated, and stop and ask yourself why. And so it is sort of like going into Yoga Nidra, right? So an example might be, let's say, I'm trying to think of okay, let's say Amy, hi Amy Beam, right there, hi Amy. Let's say Amy and I are colleagues in some way. Let's say Amy works for me and I have just given Amy a raise, and I just threw a couple grand in her 401k and gave her a bonus for the holidays, right? And then Amy calls me the next day and says, I quit. Okay, and I'm like, what? And I get really activated, right? Because I've invested time and money, et cetera, into that. Like, what I need to do in that moment is stop. I'm activated because an employee just told me that they were going to quit. This didn't actually happen, by the way. And I had invested a lot of time and energy and money into this employee, right? I'm activated. Well, I could do one of two things. I could be like, I can't believe this, Amy. Why did you do this? If you knew you were going to quit, why did you stay this long, et cetera, et cetera? But that's not the issue, right? The issue is never the issue. So what I really need to do is say, hold on 1 second and check in with myself and be like, Amy just quit. How does that make me feel about myself? It makes me feel like I'm less than, or it makes me feel like the company that I've built is less than, or it makes me feel like, you know, I was like, it was, this person was only in relationship with me for convenience, right? But is that true? No, it's not true, right? I don't know why this person decided to quit. I don't know why this person changed their mind or whatever. All I know is that they did, but it doesn't mean anything to do with, it doesn't have anything to do with me, right? So I have to pull back out of my own material and I have to say, wait a second, doesn't have anything to do with her. How does what she did make me feel? Then I deal with that upset in me. And you guys know, what do I go to? I go to compassionate self-forgiveness. I forgive myself for buying into the idea that an employee quitting on me means that my career or my company or that I am less than, right? Now, I actually marry compassionate self-forgiveness with iRest. Remember this last round of iRest, he says, are there any thoughts or beliefs that are limiting that you think about yourself, and where do you feel them in your body when you take them to be true? So if I write scripts, I will take that part and I will say, and then what is the opposite of that? Can you acknowledge the opposite of that? And then my next thing that's not part of Richard's stuff is I'll say, can you forgive yourself for buying into the idea that this limiting belief, thought, or feeling that you take about yourself at times is true? So I actually get them to do compassionate self-forgiveness in Yoga Nidra if I'm using it specifically with clients or coaching. I'm coaching with it. But yeah, that's an example. Was that an okay example, Elisa?
Definitely. I think I 100% agree with you. Perfect example. Answered my own question while I was listening to you and having, you know, like my thoughts go back and forth there in what I'm hearing you say. And the answer is yes, I already do that, because you're right. It's not convenient to drop down, although I desperately feel like it.
Yeah.
But you're right. And thank you. Yes. And I guess we always have to give ourselves permission. And the compassionate self-forgiveness is the biggest piece that I don't even want to say forget, but it's true. I'm not conditioned to practice it. I practice it with others because I saw it not conditioned to be practiced. So I intended to practice it with others, but I'm the last one that I practice it with. And I think that's many of our stories, especially female one, or the nurturer rather. The nurturer role tends to feel like that.
Yeah.
But thank you. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing. And it's funny because people will make the yoga therapy appointments with me and they'll say, okay, Michelle, I got this problem. Blah, 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 blah. I just don't feel worthy. I don't feel this. I don't feel that. You know, I da, 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 all the things. And so the first thing I do is I'm like, are you practicing compassionate self-forgiveness? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, we've got to practice compassionate self-forgiveness. I don't know why. My hypothesis as to why it works so well is that the ego doesn't want to be wrong. So I know I'm a pseudoscientist. I'm not actually a scientist, but ultimately the ego doesn't want to be wrong. So if I recognize my ego has created a belief around something and that belief is not true, it's an assumption, it's a perception, it's a verbalization, but it's not true, then I can forgive myself for buying into it, and that softens the blow to the ego. And again, it's all about coming back into the wholeness of the experience. I don't want to fight with my ego. I don't need to fight with my ego. That's the last thing I want to fight with, you know? I want to create a relationship with my ego where we can live in wholeness and harmony without being against each other, you know, and feeling separate, even that sentence, against each other. What does that really mean? That's not, what is that? So that's what I recommend. I do that all the time. It's hard to do, but it's really important. And I think that is the key. Stop yourself when you feel it. Don't get into the argument. Don't go down the rabbit hole. Don't feel yourself like self-loathing or criticizing yourself. Stop right there. Is it true? Another thing, that the way we teach compassionate self-forgiveness is different than the way that it was taught to me. It was taught to me that, you know, like that there are these variables. Oh, is that really true? No, it's not true. You're just doing the best you can. Well, some people's inner critic would say that's a cop-out, right? Some people's inner critic would be like, well, that's not enough. Do better. Know better, do better, right? So it's really important to have one blanket truth. What is one blanket truth? What's one universal truth? We are all beings in an experience. That's the only thing that's true. Everything else is a perception or a verbalization. And so if I can go back to the concrete truth, I am a being in an experience, I can forgive myself for buying into a judgment about that, because there's no judgment about that. Ultimately, I feel like Yoga Nidra is one of the most healing tools that we have, because it incorporates all of the really substantial healing tools that are found in the contemplative arts. Pratipakshibhavana, right? It grounds you, gets you into your body through Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. So now we're grounded, we're embodied, and we can feel what is coming up from the unconscious depths of awareness and we're safe, we're in a safe place, right? So Yoga Nidra really is an excellent tool, because it gives us an opportunity to use all of these tools in a way that's safe. And because we're progressively going through, we get to experience, you know, grounding first, connection to the physical and subtle bodies, connection to the mind. Now we're fully embodied, and should we feel a thought, a feeling, a memory, a sensation that is activating, then we have the tools to say, oh, okay, what's the opposite of that? That's my only criticism about Swami Satchidananda's, is he throws coffin at a grave at people, but doesn't really tell them what to do with it, right? So like, that's the only, I really like his version of Yoga Nidra, and I think it's very healing, but I would prefer to explain to students what we're doing, why it works, and how to combat panic if they experience panic in Yoga Nidra, because people do sometimes experience panic in Yoga Nidra. And if you're working with somebody who has anxiety and panic attacks, that's sort of counterproductive if they don't know how to get out of it. Another thing that's really important to remember is after Yoga Nidra, so the last couple of days, we've had many, many different responses to it. And it seems not to really, it's not like one person always responded negative to it, right? It was like, depending on the day, depending on what was going on with them, how much was going on in the house, etc. That's was sort of shaped the reaction to it, right? So remember that when we finish Yoga Nidra, we need to ground back into the body in the present moment. Orient yourself. Have a warm glass of water or tea. Feel the sensations of air on your skin. Feel the sensation of the earth beneath you, or the sensation of your body being supported by the chair or whatever is supporting it. Like, regrounding is really important after Yoga Nidra. If you felt agitated, or you felt like maybe a little activated, take a salt bath, go outside, take off your shoes, put your feet in the grass. These are ways that you can dispel the positive ions that have built up because of that nervous system reaction. So part of the free radicals and the positive ions and the negative ions that sort of play into the chemistry of our body is when we get activated and we have stress hormones that are being flooding our body, we are increasing the free radicals that are in our bloodstream, that are in our body at any given time. How do we combat that? How do we fix that? Salt baths, earthing, ice cold showers. Those are the 3 ways that will help to regulate the ions in your body based on how chemically charged you are. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Was this helpful? Yes. Catherine. Catherine, I have to tell you, I've seen a dog and a cat now in your, and I have got puppy fever. So every time I see your animals, I'm like,
I keep trying to turn off the screen so they're not distracting. So I think you guys have missed the Rottweiler because I've shut it off quickly before he's right in the screen. So they're all around. I did want to share because on what was that, Friday? The coffin on the grave we had spoke about briefly on Friday. Where I had shared that was quite surprising to me, and I have experienced a lot of loss, and shared that I had concerns about using that with my students. And so after we finished on Friday, first thing I did was take the 4-legged children on a walk, get out in the cold, and just take some time with it, and coming to the coffin in the grave, like why, like what's going on today that hit a nerve that activated, and starting to walk it back of, okay, well, we have someone who is in the ICU because of COVID, we can't see them. And then going back, okay, like, well, that's life, like it's part of the cycle. This person has said, like, I don't want you guys to drown in grief when I go, blah, blah, blah. And so, okay, well, let's walk it back even further of, well, the last time I saw this person a year ago, haven't seen them because of COVID. It was, I don't want to use the word insignificant, but it was in passing. We were moving, things were crazy, didn't do the like heartfelt, connection that would normally be there. It was just kind of like 2 ships passing in the night. Like, hey, like we'll catch up at some point. And then that, of course, going to the taking it back to, well, that's feeling the guilt and the shame over that, and walking it back to coming the full circle of, well, I should have done better, not being good enough. It's like taking it all the way around to the compassionate self-forgiveness of, obviously we didn't know a year ago that there was going to be COVID and I wasn't going to see this person for over a year, or that we would be here where we are today. So it definitely was an interesting experience to like to go through the whole process and take it back. And I just wanted to share that because I know on Friday I was just like, that activated me. I think it's because of this. And then actually it's like, well, no, taking the time to literally walk the dogs and walk a couple miles and figure it out of, okay, this is where we're at and what's really going on. And it's not about the yoga nidra. And it didn't even happen in that moment. So I just wanted to share that with the group for those of you that were with us on Friday, that it's going to come full circle.
Yeah. Thanks. So. I appreciate you sharing. And I'm so sorry that you guys are dealing with that.
Yeah.
But, man, I have so many thoughts about all of the stuff that's going on right now. But yeah, I mean, as somebody who has also experienced a lot of loss, it's, the first time that I ever heard that script, I was like, whoa, are you out of your mind? Like, seriously, I was like, Shanti Kelly, what are you doing right now? This is crazy. But then, the more we practiced it, it was so healing. I mean, like, honestly, I got to be honest with you. Like, I think I only did like 4 or 5 sessions with Shanti. And then it was literally like over. Like, our relationship, the way that it had gone for years, was I would come and sit with her. I was basically looking for somebody to help to teach me how to awaken, right? I mean, I knew exactly what I was there for. I was not there for I wasn't there just to play around. And, multiple years of sitting there, this bothered me, this bothered me, that bothered me, that bothered me. And finally, I finished, you know, all of my training, my 500 hour, I had done with her everything. And I'm like, all right, I just want to heal. Like, let's get this show on the road. And the first one she did was Swami Satchinanda. And then the next one that she did was Nashala. And Nashala did it. And I think we did it 2 or 3 more times, and that was it. And then I remember I came to her house one day and I was like, all right, well, you know, I don't know what to do. And she was like, why are you still coming? And I was actually offended by that, by the way, because I was attached to her at this point. But at the same time, I knew that I didn't need it anymore. That what I had been so attached to grief. I had been so attached to it that I had identified with it, that everything about me was integrated into that grief, that feeling of grief and loss, that once I got to a place where I could get some perspective, I was like, oh, grief is just one part of this pie. There's all sorts of other things here too. And sort of like what Amy said, you know, being able to feel that sorrow and that shame with the joy, or, you know, being able to feel the grief with the, you know, like happiness, you know, I don't even know what the word is, but that really was so healing for me. And I said it so many times, but what I really love so much about Yoga Nidra is it doesn't require a story. You do not know how long, well, maybe you do. Maybe you too have sat with a counselor for weeks and days and years and whatever of your life, decades, talking about how somebody made you feel or something happened in your life or whatever. And the more I talked, I actually felt like I was just going back around and around in PTSD. Every time I would go to my therapist, and she'd be like, well, how did that make you feel? I'd be like, I don't want to feel that anymore. I'm done. I don't want to feel, why do I keep having to go back in there and digging it up, right? So when I came to Yoga Nidra, you know, I mean, because Shanti and I had done a little bit of that too, you know, a couple of years of just talk, like, what are we doing here, right? But when I brought in the Yoga Nidra, it all sort of like shut into place. It was like, you know, when you drop a bunch of toothpicks on a table and they're all sticking all crazy and you just roll them and then they all get into place. Like that's sort of what it was like. It was like, otherwise, if I hadn't had Yoga Nidra, I was sticking my hand into all these spiky things trying to figure out why I wasn't healing. I just kept cutting myself over and over again. But if I just rolled them with the Yoga Nidra a little bit, everything just evened out and everything was smooth and it was integrated. And so that's when I knew there was something like really, really big on Yoga Nidra. Then I started using it in cardiac. Well, I used it in eating recovery. In the eating recovery, I saw such a huge improvement in the adolescents especially. It didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't affect the adults the same way. But I have to say that a lot of the adults that I was working with in eating recovery were like in their 60s and they had been restricting and anorexic for their whole life, like heart problems, kidney problems, bone density, like the whole 9 yards. But when I got a hold of those younger kids and we did Yoga Nidra, it was so funny. They had no idea what hit them. They're like, I don't know why, but I just feel so much better. And then the next thing you know, they're refeeding. They're like, everybody's like, well, how does it feel? You know, because they're not supposed to talk about weight, but they do, right? Well, how does it feel? You know, put on some weight. I don't care. You know, like it was literally like that polarity went away. And to see that in like 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, it was really amazing. And then I went to cardiac rehab. And that's when I started. I had one client that he came in with congestive heart or with heart failure. It wasn't congested at the point when he came in, but his infraction rating was like 14. So if anybody knows what your infraction rating is, basically the heart pumps. And I can't remember how it works exactly, but basically when it pumps, there's an infraction rating. And a healthy person's infraction rating in their 40s is like 74. Like that's, you know, like a young kid might be closer to 80s. It's never 100%, right? And we all have leaky valves, even if we don't know it. So just FYI. And he came in with 14% infraction rating, which means your heart's just about dead. Like you are literally about to get an LVAT or a new heart or something. Like something's going to happen or you're not going to be around with us for very long. And he started chanting at his house. And he came to every single session that I did for probably like 6 weeks. His infraction rating, and it had nothing to do with me, guys, had nothing to do with me, but I'm telling you, the chanting, the mindfulness, and the yoga nidra, he went from a 14 to a 45 in 6 weeks, which is huge. I mean, like, it's huge. So I think that there really is something about this stuff that on an unconscious level, when the chemicals in the body are in the right sort of like ratio, I mean, we need a little bit of stress, but we don't need so much stress that it kills us. And all of these things that we deal with, heart disease, cancer, depression, anxiety, all of them have to do, there's a component of them that has to do with stress. Yeah, 14 is bad, right? Yeah, it was bad. So that actually, Crystal, that got me into the doctor to have my, it's not an echo, it's a, whatever they do. What is it called again?
It's an ultrasound of your heart to check out your ejection fraction to see how well you're pumping. You can never be 100% because then your heart would stop. But yeah, 50 to 70%, 75 is about healthy. Yeah, 14 is scary low.
Yeah, it got me in there because my dad died of a heart attack and a stroke. And so I got in there, I was terrified. I was like, oh God, I drink wine, I'm gonna be toast. And mine was like 75 or something like that. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. But it's really scary. You know, there's people come into cardiac rehab and, you know, if you have a heart attack, a lot of times you can get over that, right? Especially if it doesn't actually like cause the muscle of the heart to lose its blood. Like if there's an obstruction that requires some sort of bypass, you have a higher likelihood of part of your heart dying, which would obviously impact your infraction rating. But it's scary. It's really scary. But the most interesting thing about his case was he said, well, I don't feel stressed. I didn't feel stressed before this. And then when we got him doing, well, he wanted to do the mantra. He got on YouTube and he started going and like doing mantra. And he said it changed his whole outlook on life, like everything. Like in the morning, his wife was trying to get the kids ready for school and he would be, trying with her. And he was like, yeah, we'll get there. It's like not such a big deal anymore. So there's something to it. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? It's about time, so don't forget, I'm gonna let you guys go, but if you're coming tomorrow, come with the script. We're gonna be doing a lot of experiential practice tomorrow. Jot down any questions that you might have. And just let me know, I'm here, I'll stay on for a few minutes, just let me know if you have any questions or if you wanna check in.